Today we will be looking at a highly requested axe file, Time Paradox Ghostwriter by writer Kenji Ichima and artist Sunir Odate. Sit tight because this one might be a little longer than usual. Full name, Time Paradox Ghostwriter, start date May 18th, 2020, end date August 31st, 2020, total chapters 14 plus epilogue. Starting with the writer Kenji Ichima, he would begin his manga career somewhere in the early 2000s and likely worked predominantly as an assistant or on various one-shots, before starting the series Bokurano Q in 2017, where they'd be the artist and writer. It's a dark mystery series where people are possessed by a mysterious orb that asks them questions. A very odd premise that spanned 4 volumes in total, although only chapter 0 is translated. After this, it seems Kenji Ichima would pair up with Sunir Odate for Time Paradox Ghostwriter and would take on the role of writer. Sunir Odate has a much more storied history, starting in the industry in 2003, where he'd be an assistant for One Piece and Gintama before creating a one-shot for a football series called Tokyo Wonder Boys in 2012. He would go on to serialize Tokyo Wonder Boys alongside Kento Shimoyama in 2014, having one of the shortest runs in Jump at only 10 chapters. In 2015, Date would publish the one-shot Gatchipin in Jump Next, it being an ecchi romance about photography. We would then see the two-shot Haru Koi in 2016, before Date's next series in Jump, that being 2017's Cross Account. Cross Account would be a pretty fun romance series but would only last 28 chapters, Date's second axe in the magazine, which fared a bit better than his last. Date then would create a few more one-shots in the coming years, all romance-based, before teaming up with Kenji Ichima in 2020 to create Time Paradox Ghostwriter. Now that we know a little about the authors, let's get into the plot of Time Paradox Ghostwriter. We follow Teppei Sasaki, a 24-year-old rookie mangaka aiming to hit it big in Weekly Shonen Jump. He's trained in a manga-focused art school and is someone who's been stuck submitting one-shots for about 4 years with no progress. We then get some explanation on the one-shot submission process before we see Teppei's editor not only reject his work, but also tear it apart. He's just doing his job, but he really comes off as a massive ass, and some of his comments sound just like some Jump fans. He does give Teppei some really good advice though, to draw something only he can draw. Teppei spends the next night drawing a brand new 47-page manuscript, which is basically an impossible task to do in one night, but he's filled with hope and he thinks this is his best one yet. But as he gives it in to his editor, he's quickly and brutally shot down. Teppei ends up having a breakdown and is on the verge of quitting manga for good before a lightning strike hits his house, and out from his microwave comes an issue of Shonen Jump from 10 years in the future. Inside is the first chapter of a brand new manga called White Knight, which after reading, Teppei is captivated, it being the best thing he's ever read. But by the time he's done gushing over it, the future issue is gone and he's left wondering if it's something he dreamt up or hallucinated. Teppei then redraws the entire chapter as a one-shot and attempts to get it submitted the next day, despite being past the deadline, where the author-in-chief reads it and thinks it's good enough to go straight into the main magazine.
Huh? So that was a fucking lie.
Everyone ends up loving it, and then we get the twist. Another character, Itsuki Aino, reads Jump and asks what her White Knight is doing there. Teppei continues to get new issues and realized he's plagiarized a future work. Distraught, he wants to destroy the microwave, but before he can do so, he gets interrupted by a phone call and is informed that his White Knight touched people so hard. And it's informed that his And he's informed that his White Knight touched so many people he's effectively strong-armed into continuing the series, as if he doesn't, he'd let down so many people. Teppei continues to create White Knight even after being confronted by Aino, who becomes his assistant, while at the same time vying to outdo him with her future works. Things go quickly from here, with the manga doing well, selling its first volume and getting an anime adaptation, but then an issue of the Future magazine appears with a memoriam for the future Itsuki Aino, and it's a gut punch. She died. It opens up so much for the story and presents a potential Steins Gate-esque plot where Teppei has to save Aino. Although all the fridge stuff with the iron filings is a bit goofy and dull visually, and I would have liked to have seen it handled a bit better, but it still adds an extra layer of mystery to the series and a new goal for Teppei. The rivalry between Teppei and Aino would continue, but quickly the reason behind Aino's death would become clear. She's overworking herself to exhaustion, a very real and still current topic surrounding manga authors in our world. It's something that's stuck in a lot of people's heads, especially after the passing of Kentaro Miura. And if you're a Jump fan, the constant breaks for JJK, My Hero, and One Piece constantly remind us that these authors are at their limits. These people break their bodies to create stories we love, and there's a lot at fault. The weekly standards of quality and quantity that need to be met by Jump, reader expectation, the way Japanese society works. There's also the passion the authors have themselves. The dreams they carry, like Aino, who couldn't be stopped from overworking herself to chase her dreams, and some real mangaka are like this as well. I don't see it brought up too much when discussing the series, but it dares to show the faults within the manga industry and covers topics that are very contemporary, and I think that's worth something. Teppei would ultimately be given a choice by a mysterious robot to return to a world where Aino would die in the current timeline, or go to one where he'd lose all of his memory and return to the intended timeline, where he'd go on to get a normal job but never actually quit making manga, getting into Jump at the age of 33 with a one-shot that would eventually inspire the Aino of the future to create White Knight. Teppei instead opts for a third option. There's also some meta stuff here with the robot acting as a literal plot device or author insert that's necessary in our story but not his. It's honestly quite clunky. Teppei then spends an indefinite amount of years frozen in time in an attempt to write something so good it will remind Aino why she wanted to make manga in the first place, so she won't have to die from overworking herself. Teppei goes to show Aino his finished manga, with her loving it and remembering what it's like to just draw for the sake of enjoying it. With the manga coming to the conclusion that it's impossible to create something everyone will love, and enjoying the process and focusing on what makes you happy is the most important thing, with one of the best panels in the manga featuring Teppei saying, "As long as someone else out there in the world gets it, even if you're just two of a kind, wouldn't that be a great stroke of luck?" This panel spoke to a lot of people, me included, who resonated with it. Creating things for yourself is so important, be it drawing or with videos like this. I wouldn't make this if I didn't enjoy it. Having just one person like it is so special though, and I really feel a kinship between me and the authors when reading the end of Time Paradox Ghostwriter. So let's look at why this manga got axed down at only 14 chapters, one of the shortest axes in recent years. Plagiarism is a big thing people bring up, especially in Western circles. You'll hear things like Japanese fans didn't like it because of this aspect and that's why it got cancelled. And while I don't think it's the sole reason, it's definitely a factor in why it got axed so quickly. Another problem Time Paradox Ghostwriter gets criticized for is its tell don't show attitude. The manga tells us how good White Knight is, but it's never actually showed to us beyond a few panels. It's described as being the greatest manga of all time, and it would be hard to do that justice, but actually showing it would go a long way to get us more invested with the story since it's so important to the plot. And it would freshen things up, like how Bakuman used to show us snippets from fake manga here and there. In reality, the description of White Knight sounds okay at best, if a bit generic, which definitely puts a damper on things as we barely see it anyway. People also take issue with Teppei continuing to create White Knight after he finds out he's plagiarized it, and I don't think it's as morally black and white as some people make it out to be, and it's a fictional piece of media exploring ideas of originality and presenting us a complex moral dilemma involving time traveling. So I think it should get a pass for that. I think it should be allowed to explore these ideas at least, because it has something worthwhile to say. I will say though, Teppei is quite sanctimonious when he decides he must continue White Knight for the sake of the fans, and I can see people being put off by this. It's important for the story though, as its ultimate message is about personal creativity and originality, something Teppei has to overcome throughout the series, and it's fairly satisfying in my opinion. Other small gripes I have, I think, added to the manga getting axed are the weak sidecast, aside from Aino, and Teppei's attitude when he rips up his manuscripts in chapter 4. It's a very selfish and stupid thing to do, and I don't think this helped with his faltering likability with readers. The first chapter explores the idea of a down-on-their-luck mangaka or artist voicing some concerns over trying to make it as a creative, with Teppei turning 25, knowing all his friends have stable jobs and he's still trying his best to achieve his dream, but it's just not working. I really resonate with that, feeling like you'll never be enough, that maybe you've wasted your time or life, and it's crushing because you know this is what you love doing, but the world has other plans. Teppei's breakdown is really emotional and understandable to me, and paints him as someone who's at the very end of their rope. It's made worse by the fact that Teppei clearly loves manga and wants to make something that will make others smile. It's maybe not the best intention for when you're making something creative, but it's admirable. Maybe that doesn't quite come across to everybody, and it's a part of the reason it got axed, I think. It just appeals specifically to creatives and an age demographic that I think is outside of the teens, so younger readers or people who might not be as creatively inclined just don't click with it as much as others. I think this is also a problem with the newer manga Tenmaku Cinema, which didn't last as long as well. It's another work that feels kind of made for creatives and not really for everyone. I personally would have liked to see it go on a bit longer, but it doesn't feel like a series that was designed to be particularly long anyway, and over time people probably would have just compared it to Bakuman, which I'm not sure it was ever trying to be. For all its heart and message, it fumbled a lot of storytelling as well, sadly. Now onto the YouTube poll, which sees 52% of voters out of 148 saying it didn't deserve to get axed, showing that it has a solid fan base. Comments though are more mixed, with some support for it, but also people giving critique that's very valid. Some comparison to Bakuman is there too, which I expected, but overall I'm very happy with the discussion surrounding it, as it's more nuanced than plagiarism is bad. Good job, guys.
Nice job, team.
Meanwhile, on Twitter, 37% said it deserved to be axed, with less people being indifferent and slightly less in favor of it. The majority of comments actually went through why it deserved to be axed though, a fair few people noting that it did more than just the plagiarism aspect wrong, which is nice to see, and I agree. While overall I would have liked to see a few more defenders, I'm glad to see we got a mix of some people praising the series as well as some good critique involving it that doesn't just devolve into what people usually mention. Let's check on what these two have been doing since the axe of Time Paradox Ghostwriter in 2020. It seems the two would actually stick together, mostly having a one-shot in Jump Plus called Love Attack in 2020. Love Attack would follow Tatsuya Omasu, a boy who keeps searching for the escalating thrill of battle, only to find an even greater thrill in the presence of Himemiya Arisa, the daughter of one of Japan's biggest corporations who has a strong desire to blow stuff up. It's a pretty cute and fun one-shot that mixes romance and battle elements. Date would then pair up with Togawa to create the 5-chapter long ecchi series in Jump Plus named Class Maid. Class Maid would follow Sukenobu, a high schooler who calls for a maid service, only to be met with one of his classmates, Amemori, who quickly dresses as a very busty and attractive maid. The manga mostly focuses on ecchi elements, with Amemori teasing Sukenobu, dressing provocatively. The manga ends in a really cute way, and I'd honestly love a series like this in Jump, especially because it's been a while since we've had an ecchi series and art as good as this.
Mommy? Sorry. Mommy? Sorry. Mommy? Sorry. Mommy? Sorry.
Mommy?
Date and Ichima would then pair up again to create Guerrilla Shokudou, a one-shot published in Jump. Ichima actually submitted a one-shot called Guerrilla Shokudou in Jump Next in 2014, meaning that this is a revival of that idea almost 10 years later. It seems to be some kind of restaurant-based battle series maybe, although some comments I found hinted it being about drinking and having gag elements. Hopefully we see the duo again sometime in the near future. Next time we're probably going to tackle Zombie Powder, which we read through as a group on my Discord server. Hopefully every month I'll do an additional axe file accompanied with a group read, so feel free to join in if that sounds fun. Link to the Discord in the description. As always, thank you for watching, be kind to each other, and take care.